Okay, I'm going to kick things off here. Just as a reminder, I'm John Lowry with Enviro Services and Training Center, and I have joining me Jason Lau with Limtiaco Consultant Group. And this is a follow-up to the workshop that we had last week, Wednesday the 18th. And this is a Q&A session for any follow-up questions. And we didn't actually receive any follow-up questions through the email that we provided at the end of the last session. So Jason and I are just going to kick things off by providing some more detail and some sort of frequently asked questions that came up during design of the manual. But I actually did receive one question over the chat this morning, so I'm going to go ahead and address that first. And the question was about bioswales and maintenance of the underdrain system, and also the other part of the question was, is a maintenance plan required for post-construction BMP design? So the answer is yes. Part of the post-construction BMP design report, there is a section in there that requires the inclusion of a maintenance plan. And for something like a bioswale, that's more of a customized design, that's going to be more of a customized maintenance plan. If you're installing something that's a proprietary BMP, then you're more likely to just at least have a framework for the maintenance plan from the manufacturer. And so you can start with that, and you might need to customize that plan for specific conditions at your site. But going back to the specific question about the underdrain system of a bioswale. So first off, one of the things you can do is design the underdrain system in such a way to keep the maintenance as low as possible. This typically is accomplished by, if this is a perforated pipe, you want to keep your perforations on the underside of the pipe below the midpoint. And that allows water to enter the pipe from the bottom, but reduces the chance that fine sediments are going to get into that pipe. If you put the holes on the top, more likely that you're going to get sediment in there. The other aspect of this is that you want to install cleanouts. So similar to a sewer system, you can install cleanouts along this, and we've got cleanouts in most of our, and all of our actual bioswales that have underdrain systems. And those cleanout ports allow you to access the underdrain just to see if it needs maintenance, and then also allows you to flush it out if needed. So jumping ahead to some of the Q&A questions that we've come up with when we were putting the manual together that might merit a little more description. So first off, what's the difference between an MS4 permit area and a non-MS4 permit area? So an MS4 permit area is an area authorized and governed by an MS4 permit, which is, again, the acronym is Municipal Separate Storm Sewer System. And that would be an NPDES MS4 permit. The MS4 permit areas are the islands of Oahu and Maui. A non-MS4 permit area is an area that's not covered by one of these permits. And the non-MS4 permit areas are the islands of Hawaii, Kauai, Lanai, and Molokai. And then another question that could come up is, why is the entire island of Maui classified as an MS4 permit area? And that is because even though the urbanized area of Kahului and Paia are the only areas covered by Maui's MS4 permit, just to eliminate confusion and increase the number of BMPs being installed on the island, the entire island of Maui is considered MS4 permit area. And now I'm going to go into a few Q&As about the definition of disturbed land. So again, disturbance is defined as any construction-related activity that results in the penetration, turning, or moving of soil, including roadway construction, demolition, grading, grubbing, and reconstruction of pavements, which exposes the underlying base course or bare soil. Disturbance does not include clearing that leaves soil intact nor does it include the operation of vehicles, staging, and storage of materials and equipment on paved surfaces. So that's one of the key differences between the definition for land disturbance of for the purpose of post-construction BMPs versus construction NPDES permit. When you're getting a construction NPDES permit, even the areas that are where you're staging on a paved surface has to be calculated into your disturbed areas. For post-construction purposes, you do not have to include those areas. So this next question, does disturbed area include areas outside of DOT-HWYS right-of-way? So this would apply to the private construction projects that are outside of DOT right-of-way, but may include a portion, like if the project needs to add a turn lane or some improvements to the sidewalk or driveway in order to access the private property. So the answer is yes. So even if there's only a small portion that's in DOT right-of-way or a quarter acre, so you're under an acre in DOT right-of-way disturbed area, if you take that disturbed area and add it to the disturbed area on the private site and the total is over 1 acre, you do trigger the post-construction BMP requirements. So you do have to take that entire area into consideration. So this gets a little bit into exempt activities. So there are exempt activities, but how does that relate to a project that might include a combination of exempt activities and non-exempt activities? So if a project area includes non-exempt activities, but also exempt activities, you do have to add those together. So to determine your 1 acre threshold. So you can't subtract the non-exempt activities from your disturbed area. So like if a project includes bike paths, which are considered non-vehicular or low polluting, which would be an exempt activity, can those be excluded from the disturbed area? So again, no, you have to count those in. But one of the important aspects of that is that even though they're counted into your disturbed area and to trigger that 1 acre threshold, when you're doing your treatment calculations for pervious surfaces, you can exclude those areas from your treatment area. So the exempt areas that are like non-polluting, non-vehicular can be excluded from your treatment area. And I'm going to now kick it over to Jason so he can provide us with some design Q&As.
Okay, thanks, John. Let me share my screen. Okay, so we had a few questions, not many, about the actual design of these post-construction BMPs. So some of these questions that are on the screen that we're going to go through are, kind of questions that maybe we came up with on our own as we were preparing the manual. And we thought these might be good points to go over for some of the designers to be aware of. So, once the manual becomes available and once it's put into effect, then what? Yeah. So which post-construction BMPs should be used on a project? We definitely leave that up to the designer's discretion. But we do have a priority for LIDs to be installed first. That should definitely be the priority. And the reason for this is, it's in the MS4 permit, and we definitely want to increase the number of LID BMPs being installed. They do have a lot of positive benefits, including reducing your runoff volumes, keeping your runoff, on site as much as possible. Also maintaining or matching your pre-development runoff hydrology. As you do infiltrate or retain stormwater, it does lead to more groundwater recharge. And as much as possible, we would like to minimize BMPs that treat and release stormwater, which are such as detention basins. As a detention basin, as it stores water, as 1 gallon of water comes in, 1 gallon of water comes out. So we definitely want to promote BMPs that actually store and treat the stormwater. And so the priority for selecting BMPs are LID BMPs first. And if for whatever reason there are constraints on site that prevent that, then the next step is to go to your non-LID BMPs. And hopefully that can treat your full treatment that is required. If that is not adequate, then the next step is to apply for a variance and the possibility of utilizing alternative compliance for that project. Okay, so this is kind of laid out in the summary matrix that is included in the appendix. LIDs are on the top, followed by traditional non-LIDs, as well as proprietary on the bottom. Other questions, does DOT-HWYS have a list of approved proprietary BMPs? No, they do not. So the ones that are listed in the BMP are just typical ones that are used most commonly, either in Hawaii based on its climate or throughout in the industry. So the designer, based on their experience, they're willing to, they're allowed to use other types of BMPs as long as they are approved by DOT-HWYS. So there is some information that needs to be required and submitted, such as current verification. Currently, they have the most common ones are the NJCAT, New Jersey certification program, as well as the Washington State Department of Ecology. We understand that there's currently a nationwide certification program that is being put together. And that once it becomes accepted, then that would be another source of ways to, I guess, accept products that way. Is ponding depth for the various post-construction BMPs based on the designer's judgment? So yes, it is. The examples that we currently have in the manual, I think they assume a ponding depth of 6 inches, but as the designer needs to be aware of the type of facility that is being designed, as well as its location. If it is going to be located in an area that is adjacent to, another facility or something that's susceptible to ponding or flooding, definitely include, have an overflow system, some way to discharge flows if they reach a certain level. And then there's also other options if you wanted to minimize the ponding or make the BMP larger, a larger surface area. Those are all considerations that need to be made. Pretreatment is assumed to be sized for 10% of the water quality volume. If a filtration device is used for pretreatment, is there also a reduction in the BMP size allowed? So if another type of device, such as a screening or filtration device, is used because it does not contain or hold any volume, then your BMP does not get any reduction in volume. So it needs to be designed for 100% of your volume. Typical drawdown time is shown to be 48 hours. And so what is the drawdown time? And basically it's the time that it takes for your BMP to drain from the full condition. So that includes any ponding depth that is designed into your BMP. It's the total volume divided by your average discharge rate. And this is important because your BMP volume is a measure of how much of the first storm that the BMP can capture and manage. But the drawdown time is a measure of how much the next storm can capture and manage. So you want to make sure that no more than 48 hours, so that it allows it to either infiltrate if it has good soil or have some type of bypass system so that subsequent storms don't create a ponding issue or flooding issue. And are underdrains required for BMP facilities? So this is also based upon the designer's discretion and their experience. When you do include underdrains, you need to look at several factors, including your underlying infiltration rates and your size of the facility. Typically if your facility is small enough or if infiltration rates are high enough, then there's no real risk of it ponding, and so the discharge would be high enough. The under drains do help to distribute the flow throughout the facility. So if it's a larger facility, you definitely want to have a system in place so that it can reach through different areas, the far corners of your BMP. If you do have under drains, as John mentioned, maintenance is a big concern. So make sure you have perforations or the type of perforations that you use, as well as including cleanouts, that it can be monitored for the amount of sediment, as well as be used as a cleanout point of entry. And those are all the technical questions that I had for today.
Okay. Thank you, Jason. And since we have not received any additional questions, I'm going to wrap this up for the day. I will share again this email address. You can email Ben Phillips if you have any questions. He works closely with me, and we will answer your questions via email if you have them. Otherwise, we appreciate you attending our webinar, and we hope that you are able to implement the manual and that it works well for you. And again, we're here as a resource to help you through it, because we know it is a new manual. Okay, everyone have a good day. Thanks.